What makes someone a true Hollywood legend? Is it an extraordinary run of classic films, a personal charm that leaps off the screen, or a legacy of giving back to the community long after the cameras stop rolling? In Paul Newman's case, it's all of the above, and then some. Even if you've never seen a single film starring this iconic actor, you might know him from the grocery aisle thanks to his Newman's Own products, which have raised millions for charity. But while he left an indelible mark on the world of philanthropy, Paul Newman was, first and foremost, one of the greatest screen actors of all time. With his piercing blue eyes and effortless charisma, he commanded attention in dramas, comedies, westerns, and beyond, giving us characters that remain unforgettable decades later. In this video, we're exploring 10 of Paul Newman's best performances, films that showcase not only his acting genius, but also the enduring appeal of characters who, at first glance, might look like rebels, hustlers, or outlaws. As you'll soon see, beneath that cool exterior often lay a soft heart, a restless spirit, or a moral code that made each character unforgettable. Ready to discover, or revisit, the ultimate Paul Newman classics? Grab a comfortable seat and let's dive into the top 10 best movies of this true Hollywood legend. Sometimes nothing can be a real cool hand. That line, spoken in 1967's Cool Hand Luke, has become iconic, and it sums up the rebellious spirit of Paul Newman's title character. Directed by Stuart Rosenberg, the film sees Newman playing Luke Jackson, a free-spirited Southern prisoner who refuses to conform to the rules of the chain gang where he's serving time. Have you ever watched a character so unbreakable, so willfully independent, that he ends up changing everyone around him just by refusing to bend? Cool Hand Luke is rife with metaphors about authority, individualism, and the lengths one man will go to retain his sense of dignity. Newman's performance gives us equal parts humor, anger, and sheer stubborn resilience. His Luke stands out, not because he's loud or grandiose, but because of the quiet resolve in his eyes. Whether he's devouring 50 hard-boiled eggs on a dare or trading verbal jabs with the prison's warden, Luke remains an unforgettable figure who symbolizes hope in the face of oppression. Critics and audiences alike praised Newman for the magnetic quality he brought to the role, landing him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. The film has since become a staple of prison dramas, influencing countless future works about the unbreakable human spirit. If you're looking for a defining moment in Newman's career, Cool Hand Luke delivers that raw, essential look at why he was considered one of the best actors of his generation. The movie's sense of rebellion and tragic beauty resonates deeply, even decades later. Next, we shift gears to 1973's The Sting, a delightful caper that reunited Paul Newman with frequent collaborator and close friend Robert Redford. Directed by George Roy Hill, this film serves up a stylish mix of crime, comedy, and old-school Hollywood glamour. Newman plays Henry Gondorff, a seasoned con man who teams up with Redford's Johnny Hooker to execute an elaborate swindle against a dangerous mob boss. Have you ever found yourself rooting for the bad guys simply because they're so undeniably charming? That's the genius of The Sting. The film takes you into the seedy underbelly of Depression-era America, but does it with a jaunty ragtime soundtrack and a breezy sense of humor. Newman's performance is playful, sly, and effortlessly cool, offering a perfect foil to Redford's younger, more impulsive grifter. Whether they're assembling their motley crew of con artists or outsmarting the next unsuspecting victim, the duo's chemistry is undeniable. The Sting was a huge box office hit and went on to win 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. The interplay between Newman and Redford, who'd previously collaborated on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, is a masterclass in comedic timing and camaraderie. Newman's easygoing confidence makes Gondorff unforgettable, You can't help but wonder if the actor himself might have been able to talk anyone into anything. If you want a light-hearted romp that also showcases a vintage side of Paul Newman's charm, The Sting is a must-watch. It's a film that proves sometimes the best heists aren't about brute force, but about having the sharpest wit in the room. Speaking of Paul Newman and Robert Redford team-ups, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969, remains one of the most beloved westerns and buddy movies of all time. Directed by George Roy Hill, this classic follows the legendary outlaws Butch Cassidy, Newman, and the Sundance Kid, Redford, as they rob trains, flee pauses, and banter their way through the frontier. Have you ever seen two actors share such an effortless rapport that you feel they could be lifelong friends off-screen? That natural chemistry is the beating heart of the film. Newman's Butch is the gang's brains, a smooth-talking charmer who can negotiate his way out of nearly any predicament. Redford's Sundance, by contrast, is quieter but lethal with a gun. Together, they form a duo that's equal parts mischief and mayhem. Their heists might be illegal, but you can't help but be on their side, hoping they'll outrun the unrelenting posse tracking them down. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid also boasts an unforgettable soundtrack by Burt Bacharach and one of the most iconic freeze-frame endings in cinema history. For Newman, it was yet another chance to showcase his versatility. He could be funny and flippant one moment, deeply introspective the next. The film's massive success further solidified Paul Newman's star status and confirmed that his pairing with Redford was cinematic gold. If you're in the mood for a Western adventure tinged with comedy and tragedy, this is the ideal pick, capturing Newman at his roguish best. In 1961's The Hustler, Paul Newman introduced the world to Fast Eddie Felson, a small-time pool shark who dreams of beating the legendary Minnesota Fats. Directed by Robert Rossen, this film isn't just about pool. It's about the darker layers of ambition, pride, and self-destruction. Have you ever watched someone chase success so single-mindedly that they risk losing everything that makes them human? That's the moral quicksand Eddie finds himself in. Newman's portrayal of Eddie is filled with youthful bravado, an almost desperate hunger to prove himself in smoky pool halls across the country. When he encounters Minnesota Fats, portrayed by Jackie Gleason, he's immediately outplayed, both at the table and psychologically. But The Hustler goes beyond the sport, delving into Eddie's toxic relationships and the toll his obsessions take on those around him, especially Piper Laurie's tragic Sarah. Critics praised Newman's willingness to show Eddie's flaws. He can be selfish, abrasive, and self-pitying, yet beneath it all lies a spark of potential greatness. The role earned Newman an Oscar nomination and firmly established him as an actor capable of raw intensity. The Hustler also paved the way for its sequel, The Color of Money, which we'll talk about in a moment. If you want a gritty, character-driven drama that strips away the glamour to reveal the cost of winning at any price, The Hustler will keep you riveted. It's a timeless portrait of how ego and ambition can collide, anchored by Newman's intensely human performance. Sometimes, characters who seem irredeemably flawed end up revealing more about human nature than any paragon of virtue could. That's precisely the case with HUD, the 1963 drama directed by Martin Ritt. Newman plays Hud Bannon, a reckless, amoral young man at odds with his principled father, Homer, Melvin Douglas, over the future of their Texas ranch. Have you ever encountered someone whose charisma makes them impossible to ignore, even if you know they're bad news? Hud is that kind of person. He's magnetic in his arrogance and casual in his cruelty, turning on the charm only when it suits him. The tension between Hud and Homer erupts in a series of generational clashes that highlight changing values in post-war America. Patricia Neal, who won an Oscar for her role as the housekeeper Alma, brings a grounded presence that underscores HUD's destructive path. Despite playing a morally bankrupt character, Newman commands the screen. Critics noted how bravely he dove into HUD's darkness without trying to sanitize him for audience sympathy. The film itself was a critical success, earning 3 Academy Awards and generating discussions about morality in a rapidly changing cultural landscape. Watching Newman's performance here is a lesson in how to play an anti-hero, someone we can't look away from, even if we know they're going to cross lines we can't condone. HUD might not leave you feeling warm and fuzzy, but it's a masterful showcase of Newman's ability to inhabit a role that's both repellent and riveting. Next, we enter the sultry world of Tennessee Williams with Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, 1958, directed by Richard Brooks. Adapted from Williams's Pulitzer Prize-winning play, the film revolves around a wealthy but troubled Southern family gathering for Big Daddy's birthday. Paul Newman takes on the role of Brick Pollitt, a former athlete drowning in alcoholism and regret, while Elizabeth Taylor stars as his wife, Maggie. Have you ever felt like you were suffocating under unspoken secrets and unresolved grief? That pressure is at the core of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and Newman's Brick is the eye of the storm, sullen, resentful, and haunted by past events he refuses to confront. Maggie, desperate to rekindle their failing marriage and secure the family inheritance, prowls around him like the titular cat, trying to claw her way into his affections. The tension between the two is electric, made more potent by Big Daddy's looming presence and his own failing health. The film was a box office smash, largely thanks to the chemistry between Newman and Taylor. Critics lauded Newman's nuanced portrayal of a man broken by loss, struggling to keep his emotions buried under a layer of indifference. Although some of Tennessee Williams's original themes were toned down for the film, the emotional core remains intense, and Newman's performance is a testament to his dramatic range. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof stands as one of the finest stage-to-screen adaptations of its era, and a prime example of how Paul Newman could infuse a troubled character with palpable humanity. In 1982's The Verdict, directed by Sidney Lumet, Newman stepped into the shoes of Frank Galvin, an alcoholic lawyer on the brink of professional extinction who sees one last shot at redemption in a medical malpractice case. Have you ever felt like the odds were stacked against you, and yet you had no choice but to fight anyway? That's precisely the uphill battle Frank faces, both in the courtroom and in his own personal life. Newman's portrayal is raw and world-weary. Gone is the cocky swagger of some of his earlier roles. Instead, he gives us a defeated man who regains a spark of self-respect by refusing to accept a settlement that would cheat his clients out of true justice. The legal system is portrayed as corrupt and cynical, making Frank's morals stand all the more heroic in its quiet way. The film's tension lies not in flashy courtroom theatrics, but in Frank's internal struggle to do the right thing, even when it's painful. Critics hailed the film as one of the greatest courtroom dramas of all time, and Newman received yet another Oscar nomination for his performance. Sidney Lumet's direction emphasizes the bleakness of Frank's situation with muted color palettes and claustrophobic settings, letting Newman's internal conflict take center stage. If you're looking for a film that pairs edge-of-your-seat legal battles with a deeply personal redemption story, The Verdict is a must-see. It's a later career showcase of Newman's ability to convey vulnerability and gravitas in equal measure. Paul Newman continued proving his dramatic prowess well into the 1990s, as evidenced by 1994's Nobody's Fool, directed by Robert Benton. Here, he plays Sully, a stubborn, aging handyman in a small upstate New York town who's been estranged from his son for years. Have you ever watched a character who seems perpetually down on his luck, yet somehow maintains a mischievous twinkle in his eye? That's Sully to a T. He navigates life one odd job at a time, making wisecracks even as he struggles with physical ailments, money problems, and unresolved family issues. When his adult son, Dylan Walsh, and grandson come back into his orbit, Sully faces the messy emotions he's kept at bay for decades. Newman's portrayal is both endearing and exasperating. Sully can't help but ruffle feathers, yet you find yourself cheering for him to find happiness. The film was warmly received by critics, with many praising Newman's understated charm. He earned yet another Best Actor Oscar nomination, proving that his capacity for portraying nuanced, flawed men hadn't waned a bit. Nobody's Fool also benefits from a strong ensemble that includes Jessica Tandy, Bruce Willis, and Melanie Griffith, each contributing to the film's understated warmth. If you're craving a character study with gentle humor and heartfelt drama, this film is well worth your time. Newman shines here as a seasoned performer who understood how to make even the smallest gestures feel deeply meaningful. Remember Fast Eddie Felson from The Hustler? In 1986's The Color of Money, directed by Martin Scorsese, Paul Newman reprised this legendary role, though a few decades older and a bit wiser. Have you ever wondered what happens to a character after the curtain falls on their initial story? This sequel explores exactly that, with Eddie now mentoring a cocky, up-and-coming pool player named Vincent Lauria, Tom Cruise. The film sees Eddie confronting his past while trying to ignite the spark of competition in Vincent. Yet the lines between teacher and student become blurred by ego, ambition, and the lure of the hustle. Newman's performance strikes a fascinating contrast with his earlier portrayal of Eddie. He maintains a veneer of cool confidence, but age and regret have also mellowed him into a more reflective figure. Watching him clash with the hot-headed, ultra-talented Vincent is one of the film's core delights. Though The Color of Money has a different tone from The Hustler, it was a box office success and earned Paul Newman his first and only Oscar win, surprisingly late in his career. While Tom Cruise brought youthful energy, it was Newman's depth and gravitas that anchored the story, reminding audiences why Eddie Felson remains one of cinema's most iconic anti-heroes. For fans of tense pool hall showdowns and master-apprentice dynamics, this film offers a riveting glimpse at how time changes us all, yet passions still burn bright if we're willing to fan the flames. Lastly, we come to 2002's Road to Perdition, directed by Sam Mendes. This Depression-era crime drama features Paul Newman as John Rooney, an Irish mob boss who's both a father figure to Tom Hanks's enforcer, Michael Sullivan, and an actual father to a spoiled heir played by Daniel Craig. Newman's role here might be smaller in screen time compared to some of his previous parts, but it's rich in emotional complexity. Have you ever sensed that a man is torn between loyalty to his bloodline and loyalty to someone who is, in many ways, his true son? That's John Rooney's dilemma. He's fully aware that his biological son is flawed, yet letting him face the consequences of his actions could mean shattering the surrogate family he's built with Sullivan. Newman's quiet, dignified portrayal underscores the tragedy of a powerful man realizing too late that he can't protect everyone under his wing. One of the film's most poignant scenes is a confrontation in the rain between Rooney and Sullivan, two men who love each other like family but have no choice except to part ways violently. Road to Perdition was admired for its lush cinematography, evocative music by Thomas Newman, and the subtlety of its performances. This film also marked the last on-screen role for which Paul Newman received an Oscar nomination, underscoring how he never lost his ability to captivate an audience. If you're in the mood for a haunting, visually stunning crime story rooted in themes of fatherhood, betrayal, and redemption. This is the film to watch. Newman's presence here is a graceful farewell to the kind of cinematic gravitas he'd been delivering for over half a century. If you haven't immersed yourself in these classics, or if you're overdue for a rewatch, there's no time like the present. Each film offers a fresh perspective on human resilience, moral complexity, and that glimmer of defiance that made Newman's characters so compelling. Even if the stories are decades old, they still speak volumes about the universal struggles we face, finding our identity, grappling with loyalty, and searching for redemption on our own terms. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your take might help someone else discover their next favorite film. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Paul Newman's extraordinary career, and until next time, keep exploring the limitless world of great storytelling.